Hello and welcome to the One Click Contractor podcast. My name is Taylor Haynes, and I'm welcoming my guest, Rob Macklin, today. Rob has a lot of experience in M&A and in the home improvement space, and we're going to have a really interesting conversation today about some of the factors that have impacted our industry. And in particular, we want to talk about Renovo and the situation that we've all been talking about with their bankruptcy and the business process that they're going through. So, Rob, welcome.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
absolutely. So, Rob, I'd like to just start with asking you for a quick introduction and a little bit about your background and the visibility that you have into these particular aspects.
Sure. Yeah. So I am actually an M&A lawyer by trade. Started out doing a lot of big company M&A in Chicago for a couple firms, and then moved to Wisconsin to take a job up here. And kind of through almost a coincidence, about 6-7 years ago, I kind of fell into the home improvement space. Started buying and selling companies to private equity for home improvement companies. So my entree into business was work with Brian Gottlieb, and all of his transactional work is buying and selling both. And that kind of spun off to selling companies to other big companies like Renovo, actually. So a lot of the companies that Renovo bought, I was involved in those deals, as well as a bunch of other private equity firms. Particularly now, my wife and I have a law firm that we focus almost exclusively on home improvement clients in a variety of areas, but M&A is still my kind of bread and butter background.
So you've seen the home improvement industry from the inside out. You've been a part of M&A deals with big private equity as well as maybe some smaller deals, and you get a lot of visibility into operating companies as well.
I did. I should say, I actually do own partial owner of a couple of different home improvement companies. One is a one-day bath company that we just started, I guess in April. And another is a concrete coatings company. We're affiliated with Pentec. And so we're one of the largest couple in their network at this point. So we do coatings in Wisconsin and Texas and baths in Wisconsin. So I've seen it from a lot of angles, done a lot of different sides of this whole thing.
Yeah. So you're very well positioned to have visibility on a number of different factors.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, let's start at the high level. Like, what actually happened with Renovo?
Yeah. So Renovo was a roll up of a bunch of different home improvement companies in a variety of spaces, right? You may know the names Reborn, our brothers, Minnesota Rusco, Woodridge, New Pro, a bunch of companies they bought. They were sponsored by a private equity fund called Audex. Audex is still a mid-market, good quality private equity fund, and Renovo was their brand for the roll-up. Everything seemed to go well. They were actively acquiring through, I want to say, probably end of 23 or so. Tried to consolidate everything together and never quite got things in place. There's a lot of good reporting out there, a lot of good commentary from kind of industry guys such as Michael Hoy comes to mind, has quoted in a couple of pieces and has written some blog posts. I know Vince Nardo did some stuff as well. And I'm not going to try to say that I'm going to know the operations better than those guys, because they certainly know it. And I would suggest everyone sort of reach out to read their pieces. But at the end of the day, what happened was Audex grew very, very fast. And then their revenue started to go down. And as private equity firms are wont to do, they're going to buy companies by taking on debt. The debt in particular they took on was fairly expensive. It was probably average about 11.5 to 12.5% interest. So really, really pricey debt. I think your credit card is 18, so 12% debt's pretty expensive, and they had that debt going into place. And they failed on their first service, I believe, at the end of 24. And at that point in time, Audex, the sponsor of Renovo, pulled out, and the debt holders came into play, and they started taking over the equity company. And the big name here is BlackRock, and you're thinking, is it at BlackRock? Yeah, it's at BlackRock, right? They have a handle on almost every company in the U.S. via their mutual funds and their debt. They're hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars at this point, even. And so they were involved in that, and they let that company run throughout 25. By the end of October of 25, it became clear that Renovo could not keep making those debt payments. And so BlackRock pulled it, and they filed for Chapter 7 on November 4th. Chapter 7 is the total liquidation of assets. It's not a reorganization. There's two different kinds of corporate bankruptcy. There's a Chapter 11, which is hey, let's reorganize. We'll get our feet under us. We'll still stay in business. And they went Chapter 7, which is complete liquidation. Now, the interesting part there is a lot of times when a company goes through Chapter 7, they have hard assets, right? Let's say you're a manufacturer and you make roofing shingles. Even if you can't pay your debts, you still have hard assets. You've got a plant, you've got machinery, you've got inventory and process, those sorts of things. When Renovo filed their filing with the state of Delaware, claimed to have I think it was under $100,000 of assets, and between $100 and $500 million of liabilities. So that just left a lot of people high and dry. And we can talk about what a balance sheet for a good home improvement company looks like. But certainly that meant that they basically everybody got wiped out. All the creditors got wiped out. And unfortunately, in this instance, consumers who had paid deposits up front are creditors of the company.
Right.
And there's a lot going on there, which is unfortunate.
So is it surprising that they went directly to Chapter 7 without more of an opportunity to restructure?
I think so. I knew people really well that sold to them, and they have great concern for their employees and how their employees are treated. And as I understand it, this was, Thursday afternoon, everything's fine. Friday morning, you get a call, I'm going to shut the doors. You're not working anymore.
Right.
That I think was surprising. I do know, I have knowledge that there were people out there looking to buy the assets of Renovo, keep some of those businesses into place. I think that there are still interest among some of the folks that even sold to Renovo to reopen and restart some of these businesses because they still do have valuable brands.
Right.
Why it was handled the way it was, what was going on behind the scenes of BlackRock, I can't say. I'm a little, I don't know, maybe more than shocked, a little dismayed on how it went down. The number of people that were kind of left high and dry was disappointing. But at the end of the day, they have the numbers and they have access to the information that I don't have. So I can't really necessarily say that they made the wrong decision, but it's surprising, I would say, nonetheless.
Yeah, certainly we're not going to get into speculation on some of the things behind the scenes, but it did negatively impact a lot of people, a lot of families. One of the things that as kind of an aside, we were recently at the Top 500 show, and even before that, and kind of as soon as this news came out, I think it was very reassuring and positive to see how many people in the industry reached out. Because of that, and we're really supportive of trying to, find homes for folks that needed jobs, and
if there were even like websites that went up, really quick with, hey, if you work through Novo, come get a job here. They had a lot of great talent, right?
Sure, absolutely.
They didn't listen to a lot of the talent apparently, but there was there. And then, as far as the homeowners, depending on the state that you're in, the state may have a kind of like a contractor relief pool, right? Where certain money goes into the pool. So I think for the one that comes to mind is Mexico has this, where, hey, if you were a consumer and you put a deposit, you put 50% down on a project, you may be able to go to the state to get that money returned. So hopefully I can't imagine everyone's going to come out completely whole. That's just never the case, but maybe we can try to soften some of the rough edges around that.
Yeah, that's really good input for folks that have, that have been impacted, whether it was as employees or as homeowners or had projects that were underway at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's shift gears a little bit, and I'd like to talk to you about owner operators that might have been thinking, hey, there's this new wave of private equity that's coming into our space. And, previously, folks that owned a home remodeling business might not have a lot of exit opportunities. There was transition to your kids or, business partner kind of thing. But there wasn't a lot of roll up and institutional capital, as we call it. And so how does this impact those operators today?
I think the honest answer is not very much at all.
Okay.
I have not seen a slowdown in deal volume, deal activity. I think there was absolutely a concern by some of the people who were actively buying that this would impact things. Reasonably so. Are people not going to trust us? It's a black eye for the industry, all kinds of ideas. I haven't seen that happen. At least the segments that I had, people that I've dealt with. That said, I think, I do have a couple deals active right now that are on the backside where, representing the seller, I'm actually able to push the buyers for more upfront money. So if I think about it from the perspective of the seller, if I don't have confidence in the private equity firm that I'm selling to, maybe I have some confidence, maybe not all of confidence. The private equity firm is, if they're giving me 100% cash up front, what do I care, right? I mean, I want my employees to be well satisfied. I want to make sure they're not going to leave my customers high and dry. But at the end of the day, it's really not likely that they're going to pay me $1 million today and go out of business tomorrow, right? I mean, there's going to be some period of time that I think my employees will have opportunities and my customers will be fine. But if that private equity firm is asking me to roll equity over, right? So a typical structure might be, hey, just to use easy numbers, right? You're going to buy my company for $10 million, and $2 million that you're going to ask me to roll over, meaning you don't give me cash today, but you say, I want you to take some money and invest it in my private equity fund. Now maybe a little more cautious as to what that's going to be. And I'd have to say, representing sellers, the amount of information that a private equity fund would give a seller in a PE deal is limited. And it generally comes at the end of the process. Why they do that is, we can speculate on that, but that's generally what the case is. So I think it's reasonable to be a little bit more cautious. You really want to diligence heavily the person that you're selling to, because that rollover equity is, hey, you're making an investment into their company, right, at the end of the day. So you got to know what the company's like. So that's a big deal. The other piece is, oftentimes you'll see some kind of earn-out, right? So, I want you to pay me $10 million. You want to pay me $8 million. We may agree to say, hey, $2 million, this is an earn-out. We'll see what's going to happen next year in 2026. And if I hit all the targets I say I'm going to hit, you'll pay me that $2 million, the first half of 2027, for instance, right? I have to have confidence in you as a buyer that not only you're going to be around in 18 months to pay me my earn-out, but that also you're going to be able to provide, invest in the company the way that I need to. So if you want me to grow my EBITDA by $1 million, and then you simultaneously starve me for marketing dollars, for instance, right, and won't let me spend on marketing, I've got a problem. So definitely there's some caution there. So I would say the more you want to stretch as a seller, the more you want to stretch your valuation, the more the buyer is going to say, let's turn it into a rollover. Let's turn it into an earn-out. Now the more cautious I'm going to have to be.
So let's talk about that. You mentioned the scenario of starving me for marketing dollars. How does that happen?
So I guess think about the operations of your business today, right? If you're a home improvement contractor, let's say your revenue is $15 million. You're an owner operator, probably have one owner, maybe you've got a partner. You're in that business every day. You're looking at those numbers. You're adjusting constantly, right? I think best practice is, hey, I've got a daily KPI report. I have a weekly KPI report. I'm looking at my marketing spend. I'm looking at my sales. How many raw leads do I have? How many sets do I have? What's my closing rate look like? What's my issue rate look like? What's my set rate look like? All of those things happening. Let's throw that into, hey, I know my business really, really well. We get into December, we need to spend more money in marketing. God forbid there's a presidential election. All of a sudden marketing doubles, right? And I can't do anything about that. But you're able to, as an owner operator, you're able to look at that every day and make a phone call and adjust it immediately. Like, your cycle time to make those changes is really, really low.
Yep.
Now let's suppose I'm in an earn-out situation and I am reporting to you, and you're in New York and I'm sitting in Los Alamos, New Mexico.
Okay.
And I want to increase marketing spend because, hey, it's a slow season or whatever is going to happen. And I call your secretary and I get an appointment to meet a week from Tuesday. And then we sit down a week from Tuesday and I explain it to you. And then you're like, I go talk to my operating partner. I'll get back to you. And now it's a month before anything happens. And I've blown my opportunity to fix December, right? To do that. There's definitely a time lag is what I'm getting at here. So in comparison to how I might otherwise normally operate as a business owner, everything slows down. Everything takes more time. Everything becomes much more institutional. Additionally, and I hate to say this, PE firms are really, really good at making investments and handling balance sheets. They don't necessarily know the operations of the business as much as they say that they will. And they all say that they will. And they all say that they trust you. And I think a lot of them actually believe that.
Sure.
But at the same time, they don't. And so you're not only having to ask for the marketing dollars, you may have to convince them as to why you need more marketing dollars, which again is going to slow everything down. So just adds a friction to the process that you wouldn't otherwise normally have.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you're cutting me a check as a buyer and I'm a seller and I'm walking away tomorrow and there's nowhere out and there's no rollover, I don't really care.
Mm-hmm.
But if I really want to sell today and I want to get value based upon future activity, I really need to make sure that I have a good working relationship with that PE firm to say, we do trust each other. We do understand each other. You're not going to starve me for, let's say, marketing dollars. You're not going to starve me for capital costs.
Mm-hmm.
And you're actually going to be cooperative and work well together going forward.
Yeah. How do you get comfortable with that?
Yeah, that's a hard one, man.
Right.
That is really, really hard. I mean, what I would say is as a seller, no matter how much you think you're comfortable, it's just never going to be the same as when you own the business yourself. It's just not possible, right?
Yep.
It's going to be different. It absolutely will be different.
Mm-hmm.
The question of whether you're a little bit miserable or a lot miserable, right? That's the open question. So what we want to aim with is a good working relationship. How you couple with that is, I think the best way to do it is talk to other people that have sold to that company.
Mm-hmm.
If they're a roll up and they've made 8 acquisitions, you want to talk to every single person they bought.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going? What do you like? Now, sometimes maybe you're talking to a hothead and maybe they don't like it and this other guy loves them, and you got to weigh that yourself. But it's like interviewing for a job in some sense.
Right.
Go in for your job. How do you know if you're going to like your boss? Got to talk to a lot of people. Talk to people around your boss. Talk to people around your potential boss. But I think really that referral basis is as good as going to get. Because if you just ask PE firm, they're going to tell you how awesome they are, right?
Sure.
And that's their job. That's their job. Absolutely. They're in the business of buying companies.
Yeah.
End of the day,
Yeah.
private equity is in the business of buying companies.
Mm-hmm.
They have to buy companies to exist.
Right. And again, we're glad to see that capital coming into the industry because it gives folks a lot of options that they didn't have previously, an opportunity to make generational wealth in some cases.
100%. 15 years ago, these options never existed.
Yeah.
It's spectacular for the industry.
Yeah.
I remember talking, I think it was Brian Gottlieb, he said he'd go to a conference 20 years ago, and a big home improvement guy, maybe $15 million.
Right.
Now it's like, I mean, I don't want to, you can't swing a dead cat having a $15 million home improvement company around.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the growth process, not just for Renovo, but, for the industry as a whole, for these roll-ups. Is there cause for concern about growing too fast? Are there things that people need to, be aware of and be thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the growth that a PE firm is going to exhibit is going to come in a couple of different flavors. One is there's a kind of a flavor of PE where they're just going to go buy a bunch of companies and let those companies operate entirely independently from one another.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you're selling to them as an owner operator, you may have a lot more freedom, and that could be fantastic for you.
Mm-hmm.
What you then have to say is, where are they getting the money to do all of this?
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's some roofing roll-ups out there right now, and I don't think that they've actually borrowed any, one that I'm thinking of in particular. I don't think they've actually borrowed any debt ever. I think they have still entirely put equity in. So if you can sell to a company like that, that's going to let you operate relatively independently, that doesn't have any debt, you're going to be able to sort of operate much closer to the way you have in the past, simply because there's going to be no pressure. Now, if you're in a situation like Renovo was, where they're borrowing a ton of money to do that, the pressure to have immediate cash flow is going to be extreme, and that's going to be really, really tough to deal with. And I think as owners, we tend to concentrate on the P&L, but really it's about free cash flow, those customer deposits coming in and so forth. And if you have a sponsor that's looking at your free cash flow, that's causing you to make decisions to generate cash flow at the expense of potential increasing long-term liabilities, by which I mean customer deposits that you can't service, there are some problems. And if you're borrowing money like Renovo was, and you're paying 12% interest or whatever it's going to be, that is a lot of worry. I think there was a trend back when rates were very, very low. PE firms got very, very comfortable with extremely high debt loads on their companies. I was the GC, before I got into home improvement, I was the GC of a private equity-backed manufacturer. And our PE firm was known for not putting a lot of debt in the company and they were putting about 3.5 to 4 times EBITDA. So, that was a low number, right? If you were like a Madison Dearborn out of Chicago, you're looking at 6, 7, 8 times EBITDA debt on the company, which puts a ton of pressure on management to perform. And it's one of those things that if you do that a bunch and one little thing goes wrong, the entire house falls apart. And that's, I think, unfortunately where Renova was. As I understand it, their sales dipped through like a slowing market in 2024. And when you have that much leverage on a company, if you experience the housing crisis of 2008, it doesn't take much of a change at the underlying asset level to just throw the entire balance sheet out of whack.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got these private equities, and they have a spreadsheet and they have a model.
Yep.
And they lever up. They take on a lot of debt. They have a set amount of debt service that they're having to pay on a monthly basis.
Yep.
And that all works great as long as sales are where they're supposed to be.
100%. Yep.
That all works great if we're growing at, whatever the model says we need to grow at.
Cross it, right? Yep.
But you have a presidential election and leadership more expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of a sudden, and you miss a month.
Yep. I mean, I don't want to be too derogatory towards private equity. It sounds like at times, but very much there is I think these guys a lot of times look at it as a company as a black box that throws off cash.
Mm-hmm.
And I can create a spreadsheet about there's a thing that generates cash, and I can do all kinds of wonderful things on the capital side. I don't really have to know what the thing does that generates cash to make it work.
Right.
And so again, if you don't understand that maybe a presidential election could cause sales to dip because marketing is more expensive, yada, 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 then you get stuck.
I think a more factor is that owner operator that built that business to $15 million, and it's just him or her and maybe one or two other partners, and they've built this business. They probably haven't taken on much debt, if any.
Mm-hmm.
And, they've been able to unilaterally make those quick decisions like you're talking about.
Yep.
All of these things can suddenly snowball into it's a real challenge.
Yeah, you're right. The decision-making process, right? If I can't adjust, if I have to wait till the next quarterly board meeting to adjust my plan in home improvement, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Right. It just doesn't work that way. And so that's why if you can find somebody that gives you the freedom to operate, that's brilliant.
And so let's make sure that we're really clear. Like you said, we don't want to be too derogatory. And I want to make sure it's not that you're saying that all debt is bad.
No.
I mean, you mentioned the one roofing company that's all equity. Wow, that's unusual. I would say unheard of.
It is almost it's really, really weird. Yeah. And look, when I advise companies, as a lawyer that are staying in place, I think it's a good thing to have some debt on your balance sheet. I think it gives you a little bit of focus. It makes you responsible. Like if you have to provide financials to a bank and have the banker ask you questions at least once a year, that's not a bad thing. And there are some wonderful tax advantage strategies to putting debt on your business and taking money out of your business tax free. Like there's all kinds of fun things that you do. And I think I would say that an idea that you should never have debt on your business is frankly wrong. You should have some. If you have 8 times EBITDA, that's a different story, and you better be able to manage that very, very well, right? So I don't want to say private equity is perfect. I also don't want you to take the Dave Ramsey approach to running your business, right? So personal life is different.
Yeah. So could we summarize this by saying, again, speaking to the business owner that's thinking about transacting at some point in the future, it's seller beware. You're going to have to get to know the private equity or whatever the exit plan might be. You're going to need to get to know them, build a relationship, talk to other people, get references.
Absolutely.
And you got to use your best judgment.
100%. That's exactly right.
Great. Well, I think that's really good insight, really valuable for folks in our industry. Yeah. So in terms of the impact on the financing ecosystem, what are you seeing in that world?
You're seeing, I think, lenders pull back a little bit, or that's the wrong way to put it. I shouldn't say that. I think they're a little more cautious and they're doing a little more diligence, right? So if you think about, let's say a typical improvement company that gets stage financing, what they're worried about, if I'm the finance company, if I'm a Green Sky or an Upgrade or whoever it is, it doesn't matter. What I'm worried about is a Renova situation where we've stage funded. So I've handed cash over for non-completed projects. Now that cash gets spent somehow. The cash no longer is there. And then I have a contractor that goes out of business without fulfilling all those customer obligations.
Right.
Now I've lent money and I've got customers, homeowners saying, well, I'm not paying for that because I didn't get the project done. And so they're going to shut you off. And so now as a lender, I'm out of money. I'm out a bunch of money. And I do believe a lot of these lenders probably must have written off millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars potentially when we know. And I don't think that's any particular night because they're probably using all of them, right?
Right.
So that's a problem. So I think what you're seeing is lenders are going to be a little bit more cautious on who they're approving, particularly who they're approving from stage funding. And that's a big deal. And I don't want to say that the lenders in the past they're always doing due diligence on their borrowers, right? But if you're a big company, if you're a Renovo, if you're a Renuity, you're a Sage, it doesn't matter. Oh, you're a Great Day, you're a big company. We can trust you. Yeah, we have to do diligence. But sometimes it's just like, give me your financials, I'll put them in a file, and I can check the box. Because you're $1 billion, you're never going to go out of business. And I think maybe some of that is going away a little bit. But I think certainly the lower level as well, they're going to be a little bit more cautious and a little more insistent that all of the boxes be checked and done the right way. That said, if you have a stable business, there's no reason why you can't get exactly the same financing terms as you had before. You just may have to jump through a few more hoops.
So that underwriting process, what is it that the business owner and the leadership of these contractor businesses need to be prepared for, thinking about, and how do they ensure that they put their best foot forward, and get the best opportunities available?
So what I'll say is every lender is the same and every lender is different. And so that's like, I know One Click is, got the relationship with One Look, One Fund, the financing. I think that's one of the great things that you can do there is, get a universal package of information over to a good partner. Let the partner then fight the underwriting battle with the lenders and take care of that. But at the end of the day, what they're looking for are, they're looking for financials, they're looking for credit reports. They may or may not look at the individual people behind it. Maybe there's a background check, who knows? There's an entire universe of things, but they're kind of almost underwriting the same way that a bank would.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying, are you a good credit risk? Because at the end of the day, they want to make sure you're not going to go out of business and have the ability to pay those things back. Now, it's a much lesser process than saying, I want to go borrow $1 million, but it's not, it's a little bit more than a 4-line credit card application as well. It's not insurmountable. It's not doable. It can happen quite easily. And if you can find a good partner to work with, you can sort of take all the information and get you underwritten in a lot of different places at the same time. That's even better, because then now you have some option when you work with lenders, right? This guy's only going to give you 20% stage funding. That guy's going to give you 50% stage funding. Hey, if you're working with like a One Look, you can just go, I'll just go with 50%. 2 weeks from now, maybe it changes. Like one of the lenders gets nervous. Then you can switch your lenders back and forth, I think, pretty easily. But yeah, I think what you're seeing generally is you got to underwrite stage funding, maybe a little tighter for smaller guys. But other than that, lenders have to lend to make money. So they want to figure out reasons to do business with you.
Yeah.
Because they have to do that in order to stay in business themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think that, from a day-to-day viewpoint, we're seeing more and more lenders coming into the space, which again is good.
It's great. It's a great space.
It's opportunity.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's if you kind of step back from all of this FUD, right? And you go, private equity firms are still coming into the space. Lenders are still coming into the space. Software companies are still coming into the space. Everyone thinks this is a great space to be in. They all want to be in this space.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there are bumps and hiccups along the way, but it's still a pretty good, business to be in.
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things I love about this industry is that, that just about anybody can go and start a business in this space.
Yeah.
And if you've got the smarts and the hustle and the drive, there's tons of resources to help you build that business. I'm very passionate about the entrepreneurial journey. I think it's, probably an underappreciated positive impact on our nation and our economy. And I don't know of an industry that has as much opportunity for anywhere and everyone.
I agree. And even the level of cooperation that you'll get.
Yeah.
You go to like a convention somewhere, you go to a top 500 or wherever you're going to be, you go to a YOLO convention, like people will talk to you. They'll tell you exactly what you go talk to the successful guys. They'll tell you exactly how they're doing it.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity at your point, right? You could do it and you could do it relatively cheaply too. I mean, one of the weird things about this industry is how you can build a business so big and so successful without a large capital investment. Most spaces. Now, if you're in concrete coatings like I am, that's a whole different story. There's capital involved there, as my bank account can attest to. But if you're doing a one-day bath business, right, you get that started with a truck and $1,000 of hand tools and a contract with a good manufacturer and a good sales rep. Like the ability to, as Brian Gottlieb did, you start a business with $3,000 or $5,000 in the folding table, and you can build Tunderland out of it, right?
Yeah.
That exists, and if you're willing to work hard and you absorb the lessons of your peers that have done it and built it like you have, you can do a lot of things in the space.
Yeah. Well, to your point, I mean, I am a relative newcomer to the industry. I've been in this space for about 4 years, and I was really surprised to see at trade shows, conferences, and even just offline how people would help one another. That in every other industry I've been in, they would approach that like, well, that's my competition. I'm going to be very guarded here.
Yeah.
And in this space, I mean, sure, there's some of that. If two folks are in the same town, or they're competing for the same leads, there's going to be obviously some of that.
Absolutely.
But generally speaking, the more successful someone's been, I think the more outreach they make and help that they provide.
100%. Like there are people in this space that almost do this like a charitable endeavor.
Yeah.
To help other people pull it behind them. And the sharing of information is amazing. I mean, it's kind of, it amuses me sometimes. Is I'll get a document from a legal client, and I'm like, that is really similar to one that this other guy had. And they didn't even know each other, but it's because there was like seven steps in between of like, some like KPI format or whatever it's going to be.
Right.
It's like, hey, that's that bit of document has disseminated itself across the industry because it works.
Right.
And I think the people that I see that aren't successful are the ones that just, they want to do it their own way. They don't want to listen. They don't want to take lessons, which is a shame because everyone, like you said, everyone is going to share. Almost everyone's going to share.
Yeah, they really do. It's amazing. And a real, I think it's a real advantage and feature of this industry.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah.
What do you think's next? What do you see coming down the pike in the next 12 to 24 months in the industry?
Well, we'll set aside the marketing costs in the next election rolls around. So setting that aside, I still think you're going to see more PE money coming to the space. I think you're going to see more lenders coming into the space. I think you'll continue to see growth. I mean, the economic indicators that we see are still relatively strong overall. The housing market's still strong. People are still remodeling their homes. You have a bunch of people that are locked into their houses with 2.5%, 3% interest rates that are never going to move.
Right.
They're not going to move for the next until interest rates come down. So I think as long as you still have high base interest rates on first home mortgages, remodeling is still strong. Like I don't have any clients that are telling me that they're down or substantially down. You get the the roofer here went from 40 million to 25 million. Well, because we just had a massive hailstorm, whatever, like you'll have those exceptions.
Right.
But if you're a one-day bath company, you're a window company, I don't see anybody going, we're down 20%. Certainly at the level that kind of the owner operator level where they can react quickly to things. We'll set the Renovo example aside because they did lose some revenue for some, I think, tactical decisions that they made, bad ones. But you're setting aside that if the owner operator little, I don't see anyone that I have as a client that's fallen apart. Certainly that's not the case. They're all basically, somewhere between slow and fast growth every single time. I don't see a reason that's going to stop in the next few years.
You're saying somewhere between slow growth and fast.
It's fast growth, correct? Exactly. Yeah. It's like, I did 10 last year. I may do 10 and a half this year. I may do 13 this year. I may do 15 this year.
Right.
But I don't see people going from 10 to 8.
Right.
Where they're having a problem.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to think about the historical context, right? I mean, post COVID or, in the COVID and 12 or 24 months after that, it was just,
Yeah,
great guns. Everybody's growing, and you didn't have to have a strong sales process and, you're just taking orders.
exactly.
And, that's fun while it lasts, but, now we're back into a more of a rational market where folks are gonna have to have a good marketing process and a good sales process, and, they're gonna have to be good operators, but to have
Yeah.
strong growth.
Yeah, if you want to grow, if you're at 10 this year and you want to grow 13 or 15 as opposed to 10 as opposed to 10 and a half and just taking kind of like price increases, you have to have strong processes. You have to have a strong tech package. You have to have a strong lending package. You've got to have great marketing. You've got to have great sales team. You've got to have a sales team that knows how to sell your product and sell in a lot of cases. If you don't have that, you're not going to have that explosive growth.
Yeah.
You're just going to kind of like, you're not going to go to business, but you're not going to go anywhere. And eventually you'll be chewed up by kind of materials costs and things like that. So I guess that's a long way of saying is like, do you want to have a fast growing company, or do you just want to have a job? You just want to have a job. Don't change anything. If you want to have a fast growing company, you've got to invest in systems and processes.
Yeah. Absolutely. We refer to it as a lifestyle business, and
Yeah.
not knocking anybody that's what they want to do. They got an income that they need to make, and they're making it, and they're installing, X number of baths or windows, and that's all they want to be.
Yeah.
Hey, no problem.
Exactly right. That's awesome. If that's what you want to do, fantastic.
Right. But if you want to hit that $5 million mark, if you want to hit that $10 million mark, we see, when in talking to customers, what we see all the time is that, that difference between having, a really clear, and there's a bunch of different processes, and there's a bunch of good ones.
Yeah.
And I think the key is to pick one and stay with it, and be really consistent with it, and coach your people on it, and follow through. And that'll drive growth.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't have any good clients that if you ask about the processes, they can't give me an answer.
Right.
Right. It's never, well, Joe does that. It's always like fingers or written out process, or I can describe it to you in 3 sentences.
Right.
Or, here's the software package we use or whatever it's going to be. It's always there.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, we're wrapping up here. Any final takeaways for contractors?
Yeah. I think I really do want to hammer home the point about having your things, having your pieces in place for that explosive growth. And it's not just about processes. It's about having a set of processes that allow you to scale easily, right? We can have a process that is an okay process. We can have a process that works fine if you're only doing $5 million. If you want to be able to scale, you have to have a process that can scale seamlessly with what you have. It's easy to scale sales reps. I can add a bunch of sales reps, right? But if I never have a sales manager in place, if I never have a deck that I'm using, if I never have a process there, if I don't have a good CRM, right? If I don't have a good price presentation tool, I can't manage more than a couple people at a time. So I could have a very good company at $5 million because I have just 3 amazing sales reps. If I want to go to 10, I'm going to have to probably get 4 more sales reps because they aren't going to be as good as the first 3. And I'm going to need that definitive good technology stack, that good process stack, the good coaching, the good consulting to allow that to scale. So having those processes that are not only quality and make me money today, but are scalable is the most critical thing I think, and where I see businesses fail to grow is not having the scalability. So if it's simple and it's repeatable, if it costs a little bit more today to make that happen, to get those things set up, it will pay dividends just dramatically in the future.
So for the owner operator that's listening that hears that, does and realizes that they don't have all those processes in place and they don't quite know where to get started, because if you haven't ever been there and done it before, it's a big elephant to eat. What's your recommendation on how do they get started?
Go find the next mention and go talk to people that have been there before. I mean, obviously, I'll pitch you guys. I mean, OneClick has got a great CRM pricing tool in there. One in Fund. One of the things that One in Fund, OneLook does so well is You've got a bunch of really experienced people who are actually sales managers at places like Thunderland who could help you develop those along the way. So there are avenues there, but to go back to our earlier point, this is a really friendly industry. And so you go find a good software provider, or you go find a friend that knows a friend, and you can ask a lot of people and you'll get a lot of help. And then it's just about being open to change. You got to be open to change. You got to be willing to listen. And if you can do that, I think sky's the limit for most companies in this space.
That's great feedback.
Yeah.
Rob, thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Really
Thanks for having me.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Thanks for joining us for the One Click Contractor podcast, and I hope you have a great day.